Hello and welcome to a special Car Dealer Live. No, it's not 12 p.m. You haven't gone mad. This is a little bit earlier. It's 9 a.m. and we're live earlier because it's a big day. It's new car registrations day today. Now, my name is James Batchelor and I'm joined by the chairman of ASE Global, Mike Jones, and we're going to be talking about August's new car registrations. Which have been published by the SMT in the last few minutes. And the headlines are, just as we've been reporting all week, really, August new car registrations were down 5.8%. Private car demand remains relatively steady, says the SMT, down 1.7%. And sales of zero emissions cars have risen by 110%. So to talk a little bit more about this and to dive a little bit more into it all, we're going to be talking to Mike. So hello, Mike, lovely to have you on.
Morning, good to see you.
Good, yeah, thank you for tuning in so early. Now, before we dive a little bit more into those figures, what's your overall view of the data today?
I mean, we need the caveat, obviously, of August. Since we moved to two registrations per year, August ceased to be the most important month from a registration point of view, and has sort of always taken a bit of a backwater to September, being, just usually about a quarter of September's registration. So we've got the data, it's live and it's come through. It's helpful that it arrived at 2 minutes past 9 rather than 9 o'clock for us launching the webinar, where I'll be sort of glancing over to my screen where I've got the data on the right hand side. But I mean, there's also, even though it is a small month, we also need to remember there were some things going on from a tax point of view, a company car tax point of view, and a tax dis point of view as to the amounts we were paying over the course of the last couple of years, which actually pushed the August registrations above where they would normally be. There was a chunk in both of the last 2 years. There were a chunk of registrations done to get cars registered before we saw those tax increases that would have flowed through from the 1st of September. I mean, yes, overall market's down 5.8%, down just over 5,000 vehicles. But if you look on if you ignore the last 2 years where the market was moved by those the registrations for those tax changes, we're actually at the highest August that we've seen this decade. So it sort of shows the continuation of the pent-up demand, particularly when we ignore the sort of last-minute registrations that were happening in the prior years.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at the bar chart in front of me, and so 87,226 new cars are registered in August. You put aside 2018 and 2019, and really it's 2004 since there was a number that was similar to August this year, which really goes to show you how strong August actually was. Don't you think there's a bit of a danger today that everybody, apart from you and I, obviously, are going to be looking at that headline figure, the registrations are down, and they're going to talk down the market? Because we've got to keep this air of positivity going, haven't we? Especially into Q4, where things are going to be a little bit trickier.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the stats are out. People will talk about them. We're talking about them, but we do need to keep in context that the most important thing that car dealers do from a new car point of view in August is to build the order bank for September.
Yeah.
And anecdotally, I mean, chatting to nearly all of the motor retailers I've been speaking to over the course of the last few weeks, their order bank is strong. Amongst the listed groups, there's only really Cambria that's come out and said that their order bank is behind last year. The other retail groups are saying that they're significantly ahead. So the overall mood in the market for September, which is a much, much more important month, and then, as you say, quite rightly, onto Q4, is very positive. And also, we know we've always got to keep in mind where the retailers really make their money. Initial results for August, the flash results that I've seen from the retailers that I'm working with, used car performance was still phenomenally strong. After sales performance was still really strong, as we're particularly getting some of these MOT bookings in, making sure we catch that up from the lockdown. So when I released the profitability results for August, despite the fact that we got this 5.8% drop, which, as we both know, doesn't mean a 5.8% drop in sales either, I'm expecting the profitability results to be good for August and to be good as we move into September. It's then when we start to get through to Q4 and Q1 where it starts getting a little bit more questionable as to what's going to happen to the overall economy.
Yeah. And if you dive down a little bit into the cars that were registered, I mean, diesel continues its enormous decline. I mean, it's down nearly 40% compared to August 2019. Petrol's down by nearly 15%. Battery electric vehicles up 78%. But it's the plug-in hybrids that are really driving this growth, really. And it's a shame that plug-in hybrids, through no fault of manufacturers and retailers, really, they've got quite a short lifespan, actually, aren't they, because of this 2035 ban. So that it's quite interesting, really, where the growth actually is, and it's in contrast to where the market's actually going in the future.
Yeah, and you see it with regards to, if you look at the individual brand analysis, obviously some of the bigger fallers were Volkswagen, which is sort of down 22% year on year. Audi is down 32% year on year, based on the sort of initial stats. And that's, that was down to some of the registrations that were going on, which had boosted the diesel numbers in the prior year, etc., to get those cars registered. From a plug-in hybrid point of view, yeah, it's an interesting one. The government clearly, when they produced the strategy, didn't actually initially have anywhere for plug-ins to sit. And journalists like yourself were going, well, what about plug-ins? It's like, well, almost what's a plug-in? We've got electric and we've got traditional. And from a consumer point of view, plug-ins actually, particularly with some of the geofencing technology that we're seeing now coming out in the BMWs, etc., make an awful lot of sense, because there's not the same range anxiety. We can get people used to electric. They can see the benefits of electric without worrying about without running out of electricity. So they do conceptually make a lot of sense, but as you said, they've got a relatively short shelf life. From a retailer point of view, if we're looking at after sales, plugins are also really quite positive, because we've still got the combustion engine, and we've also got all of the wear and on the brakes and the tires, etc., the enhanced wear that you get from an electric vehicle. So actual service income from plugins is strong, so that the increase in sales for them will be welcome to dealers.
Yeah, and you're right. They make awful lot of sense for a lot of people. They've got, for business users, they make a lot of sense. I mean, I was driving one of the latest plug-in hybrids yesterday, a Jeep Renegade plug-in hybrid, which, with that electric motor on the back axle means that driving off road is actually, you get better traction than you do in a normal 4x4. So there's a huge number of positives, and yet, the government seems to be sort of very anti them. So yesterday, the SMT had their Drive Zero event. They've made calls to the government to say that the government needs to really plough some investment into electric cars to reach this 2035 ban. I mean, they're even coming out and saying there needs to be 507 new charging points installed every single day. The plug-in car grant needs to be extended, and to reintroduce plug-in hybrids as well. Strong words from the SMT yesterday, but it's clear there's a real frustration in the industry that the government has made this big 2035 headline and yet is not providing much help in actually getting there. There's a lot of frustration around, isn't there?
Absolutely, and the 2035 deadline. And what we're looking to do would appear to be a political decision. We need to move to that deadline from a carbon point of view. And if you read the press over the weekend and as we've gone through this week, that it's 2035 is creeping sooner rather than being pushed backwards. And I know there's a consultation out. I was expecting to produce the results of the consultation this month, when we'll find out whether there's been further creep and as it approaches 2030. But no, the industry will cope with whatever rules it's given. It just needs to be given some rules, and it then needs to be able to explain them to the customers. Because this is where the brands and the retailers have got a huge job and also a huge opportunity to help customers get into electric vehicles, understand what it means for them, understand how they can work with them, produce a temporary car hire solution if they do need a longer range vehicle for a short period of time, a couple of days when they disappear off to visit family. So the industry can plan from that if it's given the rules. But the way that this sector works, we need time. The investment in these vehicles takes years. It's a phenomenal amount of money. So no, I would join the call for more clarity, and obviously more investment. You're permanently seeing pictures of people pulling up outside charging points that aren't working. We need a universal system for paying. If that's every single, you can all have your own systems and apps, but you've all got to accept a credit card payment. We can live with that. That's what we work with in a shop. But it just needs, and we need more of them, and then people will start adopting them in increasing numbers.
Yeah. I think there's an overwhelming feeling, and it'd be interesting to hear from some dealers who may be watching this, that I think there's an overwhelming feeling of confusion amongst customers. They're being thrown all sorts of different forms of hybrids at the moment, whether it's mild hybrids, full hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and then you've got the full battery electric vehicles. Manufacturers are having to shovel all of this product into the market to reach certain environmental deadlines, and yet for a customer, they don't know where to make head or tail of all of these cars. So there needs to be a lot more, a better package of support, education, and trying to get customers into the right cars. And for car dealers, that must be an incredibly daunting prospect.
It is, but it's not a new one. The industries love terminology and talking in a language that most normal people don't understand. When we're talking about getting brake disc replaced on a service, we're telling people how many millimeters they've got left, and I don't know how many I start with or how many I finish with and what the danger is. So there is a job in turning it into English and turning it into understandable language. And the variety of different vehicles that we have on the move to pure electric, the customer doesn't care what it is. It's either, so petrol or diesel, they know what they are. It's some version of hybrid, okay, or then pure electric. And pure electric has its name. But we've got to translate it and help customers understand, work out what car is the right car for them at the moment and then in the medium term. And as I said, there's a real opportunity to build the level of trust with consumers if we do it right. And the retailers who really get their heads around this, number one, they'll be achieving their mix targets without really having to worry about it, because they'll be doing a great job from a consumer point of view. But number two, they'll manage to grow because people will flock to them to understand what this change really means. Yeah. If we'd have all gone just hydrogen, we could have got our head around that. That's dead easy as long as they've got the infrastructure right for us to fill up. But we're not. We're going electric. And so there is a massive translation thing to do. And I'm sure the industry will be talking up the benefits of the increasing number of vehicles that are out there. There are a phenomenal number of vehicles on their way from a hybrid point of view to help meet the emissions targets. And we just need to help make sure that we can continue to make money on the road to that.
Yeah. And of course, a lot of this is going to enforce the used car market as well. What with newer models coming into the marketplace, the cycle of people coming out of PCPs, the used car market up till now, it's been a little, electric cars have been at the periphery, haven't they? But as we move further forward, especially into the next 18 months, there's going to be more electric cars coming to the marketplace. And that's actually going to inform buyers a lot better as well, because we assume that everybody's going to go out and buy a brand new electric car in the next 10 to 15 years. But for many people, they may well start off with a used car. So there's going to be a natural education process throughout all of this, isn't there?
There is, and we, whilst we from a political point of view and also from a registration and stats point of view get really focused on electric, and we are going that way. The majority of the vehicle park will be internal combustion engine for as long as we're both working.
Yeah.
And so from a used car point of view, from an after sales point of view, there's a huge opportunity out there. I mean, used cars at the moment are great. People, traffic levels, congestion levels are back up to where they were pre-lockdown, but nobody's using any form of public transport, be that buses or trains, etc. Those numbers are massively down. We've seen the expected surge, the surge that we've spoken about before, in the lower value vehicles, but that's gone all the way through the used vehicle chain. So I'm we're seeing some great things in used cars, some sort of record results from a volume and a profitability point of view. And we need to make sure that, yes, we've got to get electric right, and we've got to help consumers on there, but we also need to focus on helping people with what they need now. And what they need now is a way that they can feel safe getting around. And for the majority of the population, used cars is is where they're at. I mean, in a statement this week, Pendragon said that they thought that with their relaunch of their car store brand and their move into effectively car supermarkets rather than old repurposed dealerships, they saw their accessible market as being greater than the whole of the new car market, just in that pure segment. So we will see more electric slowly coming into used vehicles, but it's going to take a while to flow through.
Finally, Mike, do you think that, off a back of a strong July, and actually quite a strong August and September, if you believe the words of Dash Gupta and Robert Forrester, it's going to be record breaking or incredibly strong. It's very unlikely the government is actually going to roll out a scheme of incentives, because they don't want to be accused of prioritizing one particular industry at the moment, but also, the market's hot. There's people willing to buy new cars, so why incentivize them even more?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about it last month as well. I don't see that there's going to be a scrappy scheme or an incentive scheme. The cars that they would want to incentivize would be the electric ones, and they're not really made in the UK. So that money then flows straight overseas. So you're not getting that trickle down effect. And they don't want to be seen to be subsidizing the sort of old world of internal combustion engine cars. They were quite happy to support the hospitality sector, with the Eat Out to Help Out scheme, and it's all over the press this morning as to how much that's actually cost the government. But I think we can now crack on the understanding that we're not going to get any of that form of assistance. So at least we know, at least the customers know, so they're not deferring a purchase expecting a potential increase in a grant as we go forwards, and we can just carry on with normal sort of business as usual, and make sure we have as strong a September as possible, and then try and keep that momentum going through as we go through to Q4. I mean, we've seen as well with some of the incentive schemes overseas, the electric increase in the electric grants, those cars aren't being delivered this year. So they've given the grant, we've made the order, but it's actually, because the brands have met their targets for 2020 already, that's then a 2021 delivery. And actually, really, we need things that are going to help over the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah. Fantastic, Mike. Thank you as ever for joining us. We really do appreciate it. And it's really nice to actually get down into the meat of the registrations data and just have a nice chat about it. So thank you for joining us today.
No problem. Thanks very much.
So just to recap on the headlines there, new car registrations in August down 5.8% to just over 87,000 cars. The Ford Fiesta continues to be the best-selling car throughout the whole year. It's also the best-selling car in August. So that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed this slightly earlier show. We're, of course, back next week. But until Monday, hope you have a lovely weekend. And thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye.